We're from Miggle, which is a company in Brighton. We've been running for about 10 years under the guidance of our fearless leader, Alex Ma. And we started out doing content supply and then moved slowly into doing development, and at one point had our own CMS, and for the last 7 years we've done pretty much everything in Drupal. I'm Adam. I'm the product manager. I've been with Miggle for 3 years. I've been on Drupal.org for just over 10 years now, in fact. I was originally trained as an architect, the buildings come, not systems, and then got into desktop publishing by accident when that was new, and then got into internet publishing by accident when that was new, and have now wound up in sort of one of these positions where I talk to everybody else, but I'm not an expert in everything. So I have therefore an expert here.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. My name's Louis. I've been working with Drupal for 7 years now, and been at Drupal for 6.
And what we're going to talk about are some case studies, some work where we've used Drupal in Decoupled or headless or whatever manner. What they were about, how we achieved it, and weird things that happened along the way. So the first one is the student room, which you may have heard of. It actually came to the news a couple of weeks ago. Somebody posted the Excel math exam on it for about an hour, I think, until it was taken down. But usually it's fairly legitimate. So it's about 1.8 million members. It's the world's largest online student community. It has information for students studying from GCSE up to degree level, and there's a whole lot of information pages which are managed by the community as well as by the editors. So they approached Miggle to implement a change in the system, which had started out with...
Yes, they basically started out with some forum software. And excuse me if I say it's PHP because for some reason I had that in my head, but it's actually the bulletin that they used. And so it started out with forums, and then began to add sort of more complex kind of pages onto that, so university guides, these wiki-style pages where members of the community could contribute and, say, for example, create an article on revision techniques. And they carried on using the bulletin software to do that. And it's sort of, they had to bend and contort the system to be able to kind of create those kinds of pages. And it started to get very unmanageable and hard to maintain. So they wanted to separate that sort of content out into a CMS, sort of dedicated for dealing with that sort of content. And they chose Drupal 8 themselves. And Drupal 8 was a good fit for them, mainly for those CMS features, so the ability to kind of create nodes with fields, built-in WYSIWYG, permission schemes, all that kind of good stuff. It was also good because their in-house dev team, we used to developing with object-oriented code, and also other frameworks that use Symfony components. So it was going to be a really comfortable kind of project for them to take over once we'd sort of gone through our part. So why was it headless? It kind of wasn't in the strict kind of sense of headless, as in Drupal didn't provide just the display layer or just the kind of content entry layer, and it sort of did a bit of both. So the key part of the project was integrating with a TSR system. So I'm going to say TSR since you can, and they created a system called Nova, which was kind of at the core, just a routing system that served the pages, the site. But it did more than just that. It was kind of a bridge between the new and legacy systems. So in this case, Drupal 8 and the big bulletin software. And you see from the diagram, the pages ended up being the output of what Nova would build based on the Drupal content, and then kind of like the main page structure derived itself with other content from elsewhere on the site, so widgets from the forum, for example. So, in working with Nova and getting the integration sort of part of the project done, we had to consider sort of how the authentication was going to work, if there was any part of the theme that would impact other areas of the site, and also how we were going to integrate those widget blocks from elsewhere, displaying sort of ads or forum content within the Drupal pages. So for the authentication, we didn't have the option to have, say, a specific editor domain name, or domain for editors to log in directly to the Drupal site and add content that way. Because of the kind of community pages that were required, we sort of needed a seamless login experience from the sort of legacy systems to Drupal as well. So the way we did this was to replace the default authentication provider on Drupal end with a custom solution, and Nova essentially provided information about the users within the request. So when a request came into Drupal with user information and logged in users, the authentication provider that was built either created a new user within the Drupal system or logged them into an existing user account. And so with that user information also needed to come with it the permission scheme, and I think in the end they just created, or TSR just created like the equivalent user roles on the B bulletin end, so there wasn't any kind of complex mapping that had to happen during that process. It was just a case of retrieving the user ID, any kind of specific information that had to be stored in Drupal, and then also the user role that would be assigned to that Drupal user. And then in terms of the administration actions, like I said before, it was both members of the community logging into the site as well as editors. And so for community members, the editorial actions were kind of just provided through contextual blocks based on the kind of level of permissions that user had. And then editors were able to log in and see the administration feed, and it was only then that they got the sort of admin menu at the top. And then theming on the site, from the diagram before, we kind of saw that it was just as kind of the main center of the page that was being provided by Drupal, so the content body was kind of fitting in with the rest of the site that Nova basically built. And so in terms of how we theme the output, we kind of just did it as a normal Drupal project. While we were developing the theme kind of layout, Nova was also in development, so it wasn't always kind of clear how the integration was going to work. But in the end, we sort of just took the output from the page template and omitted like, the HTML wrapper and any kind of content wrapper elements, and also stripped out a few kind of CSS files that were required in terms of integration. We also had to kind of make sure that any CSS styles we had written weren't going to conflict. So make sure there weren't any CSS, so any class conflicts, any IDs conflicting when the full page was rendered, and any of our styles impacted the kind of other parts of the site when they were included. So we kind of avoided any of those kind of conflicts, mainly just by luck. The CSS selectors on the TSR end were all pretty specific, and the way in which we themed our content was based on specific class names as well, so there wasn't any instance where we had some generic selectors that were impacting other areas of the site. Yeah, and then the kind of code snippet there just shows us there was other parts of the site that were configured in terms of sending over content to the Nova system, specific kind of Ajax URLs and social sharing information. And then lastly, the widget blocks that are displayed within the Drupal content. So these might be things like university contact details, reviews. There are other widgets that are used around the CSR side as well, sort of linked lists and things like that. And we just needed to provide a way for these to be included in the content that we're producing in Drupal. So Nova also exposed some endpoints where we get a listing of which widgets were available, and so in the instance of kind of university guides, we provided an identifier to get the like relevant widgets to that university. And they were essentially just tokens that were replaced at the time of the page building process. So it kind of meant that we could deal with them in the same way as we were producing widget blocks of our own within Drupal. So there are a number of kind of editorially managed blocks that they could produce, like linked lists and galleries and the likes, and they could deal with these in exactly the same way as these sort of dynamic Nova widgets. So in the back end, they were able to include them within content and reorder them, and so they were kind of treated as part of the Drupal page, and then at the time of rendering, the tokens would be replaced with the actual markup and any assets that were required there as well. So, in summary, I guess the main kind of pain point during the project was, as I kind of touched on, the Nova system was being developed sort of in parallel with the Drupal system. So in terms of the integration, it was kind of a little bit unknown to begin with. We sort of knew which parts of the site had to be integrated, but we didn't really know how it was going to work until sort of right at the end. So that was a bit of a pain point, but at the same time it kind of meant that we could sort of shape how Nova worked to a certain extent, given what Drupal was capable of linking to, so that it kind of worked in our favour a little bit as well. There are also some other areas that weren't really related to the integration, but Drupal was in early days, and so there are a few modules that we had to port from Drupal 7, specifically around workflow. I think it was before the workflow initiative was in Drupal core, and so yeah, we had to port a few modules, particularly revisioning and content log modules, and sort of blend and tweak them as well to kind of fit the scenario we were working towards.
So that's one of the projects that we've been working on. It fits into this category. Another one is Avert. So Avert is a Brighton-based HIV awareness charity, which is not just local or even national, it's quite significant around the world. So they had a tender to rebuild a website, and we pitched for it, but we lost to an agency. And then we said, oh dear, that's sad, well, better luck next time. And then it turned out that the agency had guaranteed that they would be able to hit the timeline, which we had just said there was no way we would be able to guarantee that. So they came back to us. So we smiled gently and said, okay, let's look at it again. So we had to do a health check. And during the health check, we found that there had been so many corners cut along the way that effectively we had to start over again from scratch with it. But anyway, he got us a chance to get used to working with the client, focusing on what they really, really had to have for launch, and get the rest of the roadmap into order. Then we also did another project which is technically very, very similar, but we can't tell you about it. But a lot of the examples will come from one or the other. You can see if you can figure out which it is. All I can really say about this one is that that photograph gives a very good idea of the actual output from the system.
So yeah, this is kind of focused on the JSON feeds, and in both of those projects, we essentially use Drupal to provide a content management interface and then produce the JSON feeds output that was handled by a sort of external service. So in the case of Webber, it was just a JavaScript kind of application that presented the data. I'll talk a bit more about this anonymous project, where the output was billboards in a very public area. So we worked with another agency again to help support them with Drupal, and the system essentially produced the JSON feed that was imported or ingested by a player application, and that player application would then build a timeline to present the information onto the billboards. So editors would be able to log into the system, create an ad schedule for the day, the week, month, and so on. And that could consist of images or videos and overlay text as well. So the output of that, this is sort of a small example of that up there, and that can consist of information around the media to be displayed, as well as any kind of transition information and anything else. And so when working on the project, there's a few key areas we have to consider. Validating the content that was uploaded to the system, security of the system. Obviously, you've got the content being displayed where it is, and also how you test your work as you go. So in terms of validation, obviously due to the restriction with the presentation media, you've got billboards that have limited aspect ratio, dimensions, number of pixels that they can display, that kind of thing. So you've got constraints that they provide. So it's kind of really key to get validation sort of nailed. So in terms of uploading videos, for example, there are checks to make sure it's the right codec, right dimensions, aspect ratios, even down to like the bit rate of the files and the frames per second of those videos as well. And all that validation happens in the Drupal end of things. So when people are uploading their media, they basically couldn't upload anything that wasn't playable by the player and displayed by those billboards. So it kind of cut down the amount of sort of debugging we had to do in terms of player issues, because all the content that was being sent was on paper valid. Then in terms of security, I won't go into too much detail about the security of the system. I should have gone to George's talk before this. But yeah, essentially the usual kind of practices of IP restriction, multi-factor authentication, removing any kind of sign of the system from search indexes and that kind of thing. Was done, and then the agency we were working with also had some penetration testing done on the system. That they flagged up a potential SQL injection, which was a bit scary, and one of our developers at the time, Steve Richards, had a crash course in hacking websites to try and get to the bottom of that one. And we escalated it up to the Drupal security team as well, but in the end it was just a bit of a red herring, and nothing of any note was actually raised in that penetration testing. But I imagine that the player application and also the way in which the resources were shared between the two services was put under the same scrutiny as well. And then in terms of developing the system, obviously it's kind of best practice to have a staging environment that mirrors your live environment, but in this case that just wasn't possible, and so The agency who built the player application also built up a simulation. And they had a dedicated machine running, I think, probably 9 monitors plugged into that to simulate the billboards and how the player was going to build that timeline display. Which was fine for them, so if an issue kind of occurred, we obviously didn't have that same simulator in our office, and so it was a bit tricky sort of debugging any problems that came out from the actual player, but we were able to go to the other agency's office and work from there, as well as just good communication as well, to solve any issues that came up during development.
And this one isn't really a client as such, but one of the things about miggle is you try and put aside 10% of time each week for research and development. And so as part of this, Alec bought all the team members an Echo Dot for Christmas. And on the day of our office party, we had a hack day to see what we could come up with. Louis blogged about the output, got the address of it there. And we made some videos of the demos we did, a couple of short ones we'll show in a minute. And there's been a lot of interest in what we wrote. It's one of the most popular blog posts, but not much commercial so far. So yeah, we'd like to know whether any other agencies have been trying this out and what they've seen about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I assume everyone knows what the Amazon Alexa is, and we saw the main benefit of using it to kind of provide, or its ability to provide succinct snippets of information, much like the kind of call to action and promotional blocks that would exist on the website. So we kind of looked at our project to see if there are any examples of these and where we could use it. And one of the projects that we worked on was Picturebox. The website's changed a bit now from what it used to be, but it used to be like a video streaming service, a subscription service, and offered a library of movies that refreshed every week. So we saw that as a kind of good use case for the system to be able to say, get a listing of what films are currently showing.
I've got copies on my desktop.
Alexa, ask Picturebox what films are showing this month.
The Epidemics movies are Ride of Chucky, The Mail, Fastest, 4.3.2.1, Control Factor.
That's right. The image just shows an Echo Dot glowing, so you're not missing very much.
The Kids Are All Right, The Car, George Rule, Gay Fear, 91, The Big Shepherd, Problem Child 3.
Yeah, so that was an audio example of the demo, and now I'll just kind of talk through sort of a very basic process of setting up an Alexa skill. So yeah, Amazon calls their kind of plugins skills. They've done away with the kind of convention of apps and plugins and the likes. And so you'll be able to say skill quite a lot now.
Good job.
So I'm just getting my notes up. So I actually say something useful.
Okay.
Yeah, so in terms of producing an Amazon skill, it's kind of twofold. The first one you kind of set up on the Amazon developer portal, and that configures like the base of the skill and mainly this interaction model. And then the second part, you'd deal with how you send the response back to the Alexa device, and that would be sort of the Drupal side of the illustration. So the interaction model consists of an intent schema, optional slots, and utterances. And if that means nothing to you, then hopefully I should enlighten you in the next couple of slides. So the intent schema is used to define kind of what actions or commands the skill is going to consist of or respond to, and they can contain optional. So you can see here from the example we've got our intent of now showing films, and then there's also sort of built-in intents that you can respond to as well. So like a cancel intent, if Alexa's just jabbering on, you can kind of get to stop talking. And then there's these slots as well. And again, there's some built-in slots. So the Amazon date slot takes in date strings and is able to interpret those and translate them to actual dates. So for example, if you say tomorrow, next Tuesday or 1st of July, and we'll be able to produce that as a date. I don't think it uses a timestamp. I think it's literally just year, month, day. Then you can compare it to the timestamp from there. And then you can also provide your own slots. So here there's a list of genres, and you can specify what's available in that slot. One thing I found quite annoying, it might be possible to do, I couldn't find the answer to it, but essentially once you've kind of put your custom slots in, there's no way to change that other than to go in and update it yourself. So if for example, on the website, there was a new genre that got added, you couldn't find a way of having the custom slots sort of dynamically update based on, say, like an endpoint from the Drupal side. And then lastly, the utterances. And these kind of are the phrases that glue together the intent and the slots, and is what you would say to Alexa to get a response back. So you precede your phrase with the intent, so you know, so you'll be able to distinguish it from other things you could ask Alexa, and you can also include multiple kind of slots within that phrase as well. You'll notice that there's sort of, you have to provide every kind of variation of that phrase that you want Alexa to be able to respond to. So what films are showing, what films are playing, what movies are showing, and so on. So you need to kind of list every sort of variation there. And then in terms of building out the Drupal side of the skill, which is going to get the request from Alexa, build a response and send it back. There's obviously a Drupal module available, and during our hack day we used a PHP library that provided some help functions in dealing with the request and building the response body. So here's an example of a request. You can see that the intent has been provided as now showing films, and there's also a date provided there with the value, and that kind of would be derived from how the phrase was sent to the Alexa device. And in terms of how you produce the response, it can kind of be up to you completely. It could just be a simple SQL query, or if it's more complex, you use views and just strip out the HTML. And I mean, one thing what I was thinking about when doing the picture box demo was the ability to use maybe a solo search. So if you're filtering by particular genres or cast members, that kind of thing, it'd be quite easy to just send that off to a solo search, get a response back, do some tweaking on the response text you get, and then send that back to Alexa. So the kind of very basic level is just a string of text that you send back, and the Alexa device just reads that out. But you can also sort of augment that text as well with speech synthesis markup language, or SSML, and that kind of allows you to change how the Alexa device delivers the content. So if you had a number, for example, 1931, Alexa might say that as 1931 by default, but if you wanted it to be represented as a date, you could use this SSML markup, and Alexa would then say 1931, for example. You can also have, obviously, audio files played back. One of our projects had a feature which was poem of the day, and so we unfortunately didn't get anything to demo on that, but it would have been nice to be able to kind of have an Alexa skill that you could sort of say, play me poem of the day, and you would have the author read out their poem for that day. So yeah, in summary, it provides sort of an exciting potential to have a different way of presenting your website content, and particularly, like I said, these small snippets of information, or if you've got content that may be produced as a feed where people can subscribe, it might be a good area to produce an Alexa skill, so you could have someone able to kind of get the latest news and the latest offers, that kind of thing. Didn't necessarily need them to go and visit the website. And then one issue during the hack day, I think it was only really me that had it, which was the skill just wouldn't work. I'd send the request and send the response back, and just nothing would happen. I'd spend hours writing debug codes, trying to work out what the issue was. But I think in the end it was just Amazon kind of being really aggressive with its caching of the skill configuration. And so just had to kind of ditch that, recreate it, and it just worked the first time. So something to bear in mind.
I think we can skip that one.
Yeah, that's probably best. So I'll just go back. That skill was just from Ski Safari website where they sell skiing holidays, and it was just getting a listing of the latest holiday offers that were on the site. So yeah, in terms of what we learned, validation is key if you're going to be sending your content to an external service that's sort of got no idea how it's going to be used, then yeah, it's really important to have some good validation as to what content you're going to be sending over. And if you're able to have a good understanding of the service that you're going to be integrating with, it's kind of vital to avoid any major issues that can pop up. And then, like in a lot of these case studies, we've worked with other agencies, so good communication, good relationship with those agencies and developers involved is really important as well. Yeah, so generally just good teamwork. I think that's it.